Hello and welcome to Model Engineers Laser. My name is Ed and this is part 3 of our build of the 5" gauge 1831 diesel shunter. In the last part we were working on the fabrication of the horns for both the 3 driving axles and for the jack shaft, and we went through the stages of putting one of them together, from separating all the bits from the fret, fettling them so that they all fitted, and then going through the silver soldering stage of putting one together. This is that one. If you remember, we left it soaking in the brick acid. I can't remember how long it was for now. I would have to go back and check the videos, but anyway, that's it. And I've kept it deliberately separate from the other one, so I do know it is this one. And the only thing it came out of the brick acid bath and has had a good scrub under some hot water with a bit of green Scotch-Brite just to clean it up. Since then, I've finished off, well, we're up to 7. The 8th one, I managed to drop one of the gussets on the workshop floor, and the chances are we'll never see that again. So I'm going to have to cut a new one, which will at least give me an opportunity to double check the modifications that I made to the drawing in light of our experience of actually putting one of these together. Because I made a few little tweaks just to the gussets, just to save a little bit of work and just to make things fit together a little bit better straight off the machine. So we're up to 7 for the minute. The 8th one will join us when I do the next batch of laser cutting, and then I'll get that done and fabricated up the same as the others. The other good news, since the last video, the foundry have finally delivered the 6th wheel casting. So we now have a full set. These are for the model of Ginty, also in 5" gauge, and from Blackgates Engineering. They are specifically the W58 wheel casting, which is the leading and trailing wheels, the coupled wheels, not the crank axle wheels, because the Ginty's got inside cylinders, and what that means is that the ballast weight that's cast in isn't opposite the crank, which is what we need for 1831. The wheel, because it balances both the outside and the inside crank and the con rods and everything else. I can't remember exactly where it is, but the balance weight's sort of up here around somewhere. I can't remember where it is. So yeah, specifically W58, and you can see that there it is on both of them. Coupled wheels, not the crank axle drive wheels. So yeah, very happy we've got those. We're not quite ready to machine them just yet, but we will do very soon. Now that they've arrived. It's not Blackgates' fault, it was the foundry who, for whatever reason, delivered 5 of them, plus another customer's order. But the 6th one for me just took forever for whatever reason, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, we're not quite ready for those yet. We'll get on to machining wheels soon. So this time what we're going to do, we're going to clean up the horn castings and get them ready for mounting. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to start fitting the angle iron, which reinforces the top edges of the frame where I drilled all these holes, and will provide a mounting for the bed plate when we get that far. I've been doing some work on motor designs for it. I think we're going to be going with 2 motors. I wanted to get 4 in, the same as the 08 shunter does, Charlton design, and I think AP Engineering also do a 5" 08, but because this is inside frames, we haven't got the width between the frames to actually get the motors in, which is a little annoying, but there's nothing I can do about it. It's just a feature of the design. So I think we're going to have 2 187 watt motors I'm currently looking at, 24 volt. So we're going to have to drive through a bevel gearbox, One of them is going to drive off, what did I say? The leading axle, and that's going to lie up and under here. And then the second one will drive off the trailing axle, and that'll actually point upwards into the battery compartment, but it'll be behind the driving compartment bulkhead, actually within the battery space. And I think there'll be plenty of room to still get the 2 batteries in that we want for 24-volt drive. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say the 2 batteries will provide enough capacity for most running. Certainly it'll provide enough for us, for the apprentice, to go and have a play when she's, I say when she's a little bit older, she's nearly 5 now. You're going to have a play for an hour. It would probably do a little bit of public running at that, depending on what your track is. Maybe not at our club, but certainly for me, the big attraction is I'll be able to take this up to Rydale or Saracen's Head and go and have some fun shunting at a GL5 event. 2 batteries certainly be plenty big enough for what I want to do. It's unfortunate that I couldn't get the 4 batteries in, but there's just not enough room. If anybody does actually succeed in finding 4 small motors to do it the 08 way, I would be very happy to see how. So anyway, yeah, that's what we're going to do. So this is 1/2 inch steel angle with an 1/8 wall. That's going to go along the top, like so. We're going to have to straighten the angles just a little bit. But the first thing we do, you can probably see on that one, we need to take the mill scale off. I only need to do it on one face at the minute. And that's going to be the face which will go against the chassis. So this is the wrong way around. It's got to go that way. So it's that face there, which, oops, a little bit snug. Maybe I have to just shorten it just a little bit. So that'll be that one. That will be its mate on the inside, or it could be the one on that side. So that's that one. That one. Well, that one will end up on this side. I can't put it in from the top. And then that one will end up on that side. So that's what we're going to have a look at doing this time round. So if we start with fitting the angles to the top of the frames, what we're going to do, we are going to, I'll take this to the workshop and I'm going to clamp it in my bench vise first, the right way up, and then, because we've got all the holes drilled on the outside, I'm going to clamp that to the inside. I'm going to get it nice and straight by the feel of it. Yeah, I've just got a little bit of a bow in it, so I'll straighten it, and then we'll clamp it there with a number of clamps. And then we'll be able to spot through, well, probably drill straight through the existing holes, drill the angle iron as well. And because the frame is already put together, which is deliberate, that's sort of how, if you elect to have a pre-welded frame from Model Engineers Laser, obviously that's how you'll get it. You won't have the opportunity to put the holes in the angle. But what we'll do is we will drill all these. And then once it's drilled, we should be able to take it out, turn it round and bolt it on the outside, because the holes which I drilled in here and which are now actually laser cut, I've changed the drawing file so they will come already in, they're equal about the middle. So you should be able to take that piece of angle out and fit it on any of the 4 positions. So that's what we'll start with. We'll get that in and we'll make sure the frames are nice and straight before we make a start on fitting the horns. Okay, so there's the first bit of angle straightened and clamped to the top. I've got a load of 1-inch G clamps somewhere which would reach over that and grip it quite nicely, but of course I can't find them now. I want them. So what I've got my, I don't know what the proper name for those is, the sort of the mole grips that do that. Some Toolmakers clamps, and what I've done is I've just got some bits of material just in there to make sure that the clamp is actually gripping on that leg of the angle iron and holding it tight to the frame, not gripping it on the outer edge here and potentially twisting it, trying to keep it all nice and straight and square. So we're going to make a start now drilling the holes. I'll put a couple of bolts in as I go, because at some point that clamp's in the way and whatnot, so they'll have to come off. So we'll put some bolts in as we go, just to keep it all neat and tidy. And the other thing is, if we keep these two clamped, it won't throw burrs up so much between the two plates and get swarf trapped in there and everything else. So we'll start right by where the clamps are, as close as we can get. Put some bolts in and gradually work our way along. It's going to take a few minutes. I've straightened it reasonably well. It's straight that way, within a few thou. It's not quite so straight that way. It's slightly got a very slight hollow there, but I'm not going to worry about that too much, because it'll be the bed plate that bolts on there, which is supporting the body and the batteries, so I'm not overly stressed about that. I'm not going to come back in after every stage of drilling holes, putting bolts in, moving clamps, but this is just the first one. You can see where I had the clamps previously. I think that one was there. So I've drilled that, I've put a bolt in it, and where I was next to a clamp, I was actually between clamps there. So I've done those two and whatever. So I've put bolts in those now, just some M3 cap heads, holding it tight there, moved the clamps. And what I'll do now is I'll go in and I'll drill next to the clamps, between the clamps and the bolts, and I'll put more bolts in, and then I'll go on, carry on and carry on. I'm not going to come back for everyone. What I shall do now is I shall just steadily work through this, and when I've got both sides, all four angles drilled, then I'll come back. Right, there we go. So all four angles are drilled now. Literally, clamp one on the inside, drill all the way, get its mate, clamp that on the inside, drill all the way, and then they're fit for bolting up. Do the other side. It was quite monotonous, so you're glad I didn't bring you back after every change of the clamp. But they're all there now, and fitted to it. Controversial. They're fitted with caphead screws and nylock nuts, and I'm not planning on changing them. Now, most model engineers would come to this and they would go in and they would rivet all of that together. Now, I'll be quite honest, normally I would as well, but one of the purposes of this video is to show that there are other ways of doing things, and you don't have to have all the skills, all the equipment to be able to build a model. So M3 cap heads and nylock nuts it is, and they'd be perfectly fine for the job, honestly. One of the benefits of this is that being electric propulsion, it doesn't have the hammer blows that a steam engine does, but to go in and rivet all of that would, quite frankly, be excessive. It's also made a lot of difference now to the rigidity of the frames. You may have noticed in previous videos that it was all a little bit flexible, because obviously it was only joined at each end by the buffer beams and the gussets for the couplings. Just plain ordinary 3mm plating here was very flexible. I mean, it still is flexible at the tops there, bottoms, but the tops, now that they've got half-inch angle each side of them, they are much more rigid now. It's almost impossible to put any movement at the bottom, so that's good and solid now. That will be further strengthened when we put the deck plate in, because that will be bolted into here as well, and being a big flat sheet of 3mm steel, that will make the whole thing really quite rigid. The next job for me is, well, the next job for the model is going to be fitting the horns. These slot into here, and we've got a set of holes to put in here as well. Now I'm going to have to drill those because obviously there's, as you can see, the holes are not in here, but the laser cutting file has now been changed. So the next time I cut a set of these, all these bolt holes along the top will be in, but also the bolt holes for the horns will be in the frames as well. I made these frames before that change was done, so I've got to go back in and do that manually. So first of all, you can see how they actually slot in there and they lock in there really quite so. That's a really good fit, that one. Hopefully they're all like that. Depends a little bit on how well they were put together when I soldered them. There's another one. Yep, that one's, whoops, that one's really, in fact that's even snugger, that one. And then, but yeah, you get the idea. They've got to be all fitted into there. That one's going to need a little bit of dressing. I got a bit enthusiastic with the solder on the back of that one. In fact, I think that's the one that I used in the example of the brick acid. I think that was the one I did in the video, but anyway. So, yeah, I've got to go through, I've got to fettle each one of those just to fit that last little bit. They're also a little bit tight in there. They could, I think they could perhaps just do with a thou or two more clearance. A little bit too snug, but I'll sort that out. I'll get all the holes drilled, and then, controversial, they're going to be bolted in with M3 dome-headed screws again. For the same reason, just to prove that you don't have to have all the skills and all the equipment. Nuts and bolts will do the job fine, thank you very much. Yeah, when I've done all that, then I think we can come back for another video. I think next time, perhaps, once I've got those bolted up, we might maybe start looking at fitting the couplings. And also, we've got some embryonic buffers. There's no castings for this. I'm going to show a method of fabricating them. There should be some buffer heads somewhere. Where have they gone? Oh, there they are. There you go. Embryonic buffer heads as well. Yeah, and oh yeah, horn keeps. I may not fit these just yet, but those are the horn keeps. We'll have to see. I'm not. I need to think about the next stages of doing this, and at some point I want to get it off. You may wonder why I only took the mill scale off one bit of the angle, and that's because I'm going to send the whole thing away for shot blasting once we get the main bit of the frame put together. I always do that. I have it shot blast and get the primer put on straight away, and that gives it a really good base then. It'll get rid of bits of rust that are starting to come through as well. But that'll get the rest of the mill scale off of these. It wasn't worth going in taking it all off with an angle grinder because there's nothing to be gained when I'm then sending it for shot blasting. But obviously the face that goes against the frame, that needs to be done before it all gets bolted up into one piece. I think that'll be it for this video because I've got a little bit of work to do getting these to fit. So all that remains to say is thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons and the little notification bell, which will tell you when the next video is released, which could be more of this, could be Connor with the Y6, or it could be Holly with Jack. You never know. Bye for now.